So what is CompEx? And why do we go to such an extent and effort to help ensure safe working practices in explosive atmospheres are fully understood worldwide to enable validation of individuals' core competencies for staff and for contractors, which perhaps is where the greatest risk is? Well, it's to prevent this. This still happens. Devastation where flammable atmospheres exist and where incentive sparks can be created by poor working practices. So it's a serious business. CompEx is an international scheme based on international standards. The comp comes from competency and EX is explosive atmospheres. And as Bob alluded to, since the Piper Alpha disaster in 1988, it took 6 years to come up with this scheme, but since 1994, we've actually delivered over 70,000 certificates of competency to people that work in the oil and gas and chemical industry worldwide. Our company, JT Limited, is accredited to an international standard, 17024, for the certification of persons. That in itself gives us worldwide international respect for our processes and the quality management of our scheme. I was very proud of the 3 years I was tortured before we actually got that accreditation back in 2010. But anybody that's involved in certification of persons, I will well recommend 17024 as a procedure to give you the extra mileage and an extra badge that does have meaning worldwide. So if you think of the driving test analogy, this is what we do to craftspeople that work in the oil, gas and chemical sector. The highway code is what we use the online knowledge examination for with Surpass. The driving practical, we put them through 4 practical assessments in bays to check that they have the ability to apply the knowledge safely, and that demonstrates competency. You have to pass the examination, you have to pass the practical in order to get a certificate. So what are the requirements? Well, they need to be qualified craftspeople, they need to pass the exam, they need to pass the practical, and our course is much more than what we allude to as a training course. It's an underpinning knowledge, practical ability, competency validation course for people that work in explosive atmospheres. And that's where we operate, pretty much across the world. The uncoloured circles are the ones where we've got interest at the moment. The rest, the white on black background of where we've opened centres in the last, in 2017, and we have 60 centres worldwide where we operate the scheme. So up to 2012, everything was on paper. 18 sheets of paper per candidate. I think 6 were the examination, the rest were the practical assessment recording sheets. And we should have been shareholders in DHL and FedEx, because what we were posting out and what they were posting back obviously slowed up certification. The globalization of the CompEx scheme demanded greater security, and online exam marking provided reliable, repeatable accuracy of marking. My sanity was called into question when I offered to the people that had invented CompEx and run with it for 10 years before I got involved, what on earth do you want to do an online examination? What if there's a fire alarm during the exam? Well, what if there is a fire alarm during the exam? Surpass has got a methodology to deal with that. It works. In 2013, we moved all our centres with EAL's assistance to the BTL's online platform, and for the last 3 years, we've been dealing directly with BTL, doing 7,000 online exams at 40 centres worldwide back in 2014. Last year, we did over 8,000 at 60 centres. And the last 3 years have been the biggest challenge in the oil and gas industry. That's why petrol's cheaper, $108 a barrel, down to 25 in February last year. It's recovered to mid-50s and 60s. It's probably going to stay that way for the next few years. So our experiences. Tim said to me, can you give us some of your own experiences of working with Surpass? So I felt it would be appropriate to share some of the highlights and some of the sleepless nights. Working with 60 third-party centres, they're not our centres, they're third parties, that's always challenging. International centres, please don't assume their infrastructure for the internet is as good as you find in the UK and the US. Broadband speed and capacity issues will bite you if you don't check it out, especially in developing countries. Downloading the online exams in good time and not the hour before the candidate's due to take it is definitely recommended as good practice. But please check your Surpass updates have been done, because that also, if it's done on the day of the exam, has its problems. And I'm giving you this information because this is our real experiences with third parties. We all enjoyed the update in May 2017. The file size took 35 minutes for us to download in the UK, but we had centres around the world, it was taking 3.5 hours and timing out. And that perhaps, and we fed that back to BTL, and that's been addressed moving forward. So a two-way approach. Key codes. Well, this has pretty much been addressed now, but not everybody whose mother tongue is English always gets the fact that S is not the number 5, that a 0 is not the letter O, and a 1 is not a capital I. And we've had many instances where people have called us and said the key codes don't work, and mainly those were the 3 problems that we had with key codes. We get the odd invalid key code message when the internet's been lost, and it's very difficult to detect. The candidates are on the computer, unless the invigilator's up to speed and is keeping an eye. Sometimes that message comes to us, that can be a confusing message, and it's because the internet's been lost, not because there's a problem with the key code. The tutorial has been one of the biggest benefits to us because we work across all generations, from young qualified electricians to people in their 60s who are doing their 5-year refresher, because they need to do a refresher every 5 years. That tutorial is invaluable in walking people through. We had a guy in Middlesbrough who was not going to do the online exam no matter what. He was going to do it on paper. And you do get these people in Yorkshire and Middlesbrough who have that attitude. So they rang me up and said, we've got a real problem at the centre. My guy was local. I asked him to go in and talk to the candidate concerned. And what we promised him was that he must do the online exam like everybody else. We'd fly shotgun with him, and if it turned out to be an absolute disaster for him, then we'd have a paper backup for him afterwards. He actually gave us feedback that he couldn't believe how easy it was. The tutorial that we walked everybody through before the exam started, the ability to flag the questions was invaluable and has proved invaluable ever since. So centres must read, understand and obey the BTL technical specification. Why? Because the May update did catch one of our UK centres out. Okay, it was north of the border, but they were still on Windows Vista software. Surpass was still working on it. It wasn't on the spec. But yes, people understand. Check the level of understanding. Firewalls at colleges, Port Harcourt in Nigeria, on Shell's compound. We had a guy went in, he did the exams, but he had to download them in his hotel room to take them in, because when they originally tried it, major organisations have firewalls to prevent you downloading or uploading out of their environments. Please bear that in mind. The highlights: no more manual marking of paper examinations. Result marking is now almost 100% reliable. Integration of BTL exam results into our Microsoft Dynamics CRM system has worked very well and allows us to concentrate on management information now. And expanding our global footprint has been enabled with the reliability and accuracy of the BTL online examination platform. So 3 big highlights for JT Limited CompEx. The strategic move to online examinations has enabled us to focus on the development of the scheme. Our administrators, their role's been so much enhanced, and rather than being bogged down with marking paper examinations, we gave them access to Sage. They started to do the invoicing. We gave them access to the Microsoft Dynamics, they started to do the end certification process rather than picking up the mail, opening up paper, marking exams, rather a mind-blowing job. Certificate turnaround times has been enhanced despite our continued growth worldwide. I haven't had to put lots more administrators in place to mark paper. So, the learning lessons from me: clear communication is essential. Check the level of understanding before proceeding. Thank you very much.